The biggest cold air blast of 2024's fall so far is on the way into the central and eastern United States into the week ahead, and it's not only going to impact the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast, but 30s are going to go as far south as the southeast U.S. This video has the details on that cooldown plus a longer range pattern shift.
One Nation Weather.
Timestamps are in the description of this video if you want to skip ahead to a specific part, but I want to just start with the overview of the jet stream as we go through this week, because most of what's going to go on this week is going to be dictated by the pattern as you go up 20,000 feet in the atmosphere. In this case here, as I jump to our Tuesday, October 15th of 2024 into the morning hours, you can see this strong belt of jet stream flow diving out of the north central plains through the mid-Mississippi Valley and towards the southeast U.S. I talked about this quite a bit in my last video, but most areas, if not all areas along these arrows and north of them, are going to be influenced by this jet stream, and this is the polar jet stream diving south. There's going to be some northwest to southeast wind flow behind the low pressure system pulling this jet stream dip, and overall this is going to mean that all areas here through the central and eastern U.S. are going to feel the effects at some point early this week of a cool down, some temperatures 10, 15, even 20 to 25 degrees below average for this time of the year. I'll break that down in more detail in a moment, but I did want to hint at what's going to come a little bit later on this week and what I'll be discussing further in the video. You can see that we're going to have this ridge going on into the jet stream, which is the opposite effect, the jet stream actually being pushed north a little bit. This trend should be quite favorable for some warmer air to make its way from the southern U.S. all the way to the north, cutting through the central plains into the northern plains and towards the upper Midwest. This could be the setup we need for a little bit more of an active pattern with warmer temperatures and maybe even some isolated severe weather into this region and some other areas as well later down the line. All of these setups and models wouldn't even be available to me in such high quality if it weren't for the awesome weather model maps from Weatherbell that I use in my videos. They have a free trial link for you below in the description to my video right here if you want to check it out. Make sure you're doing that if you want those model maps for yourself. Also, if you want to subscribe to this channel, it is free right here on YouTube. I'm at 5,480 subscribers, on that way to 6,000 as my next milestone. I would love for you to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on those notifications. But now getting into the first real chapter of this video, which is the discussion of the storm that's going to bring in a cool down, and really that cool down in particular here. And as we go into our Monday, October 14th of 2024, using the European model for future radar, I think it does a great job of showing that behind the low pressure system that you can see over there with some moderate precipitation in the northeast, we're also going to have some at least isolated showers and some strong northwest to southeast wind flow driving them, moving through the upper Midwest to the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley. The overall overcast conditions are being driven by the low pressure and that same low pressure system as it works its way further up into Canada this week. It's the one that's actually pulling that jet stream down behind it into the eastern U.S., and that's why anywhere from around the central plains eastbound, we are going to have a cool down going out of Monday into Tuesday and even continuing towards Wednesday, Thursday, the further east you go and closer to where that low will remain. Tuesday afternoon, you can see that wrapping around this low, you're not going to be able to enjoy the cool air quite as much if you like cool air in the Ohio Valley and Northeast, just because we're going to be seeing a little bit of continued isolated precipitation closer to that low, but most other areas will remain dry because this is that drier flow coming out of Canada. And again, here's another visualization of that. Looking at the jet stream for early this week, you can see it's diving down there out of the north central plains, down the Mississippi Valley, and towards the southeast, and therefore that cooler air will really sink in and especially affect those areas closest to where the low pressure system will be. You can see that perfectly using the visualizations that my temperature anomaly graphics give you right here, custom made for you on the channel. And as we go into our Monday, October 14th of 2024, just look, temperatures at least 5 degrees below average from the Dakotas and Nebraska all the way over to Maine, and surrounding the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley, I think we're going to have plenty of 10, 12, even 14 to 15 degree below average temperatures for this time of the year. As we go into our October 16th, so jumping through Tuesday into our Wednesday, temperatures even cooler along the Appalachian corridor, around 20 degrees below average there. Most other areas from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Northeast, 10 degrees below average. As you go over there towards Montana and the Central Mountain West, though, a little bit warmer than average. In fact, a lot warmer than average the further north you go, 20, 25 degrees above normal. This is going to be that warm-up that continues to shift east as we go towards the end of this week, and I cannot stress enough, make sure you're sticking around for that chapter of the video because it could include some severe weather entering new areas later on, and it's something you don't want to miss because it's going to be probably the full topic in my next video. But for now, we're talking about that cool down here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the exact temperatures that are forecasted from the National Digital Forecast Database as we go day by day this week. You can easily see who is behind the front going into our Monday morning. Temperatures from Nebraska and Iowa points northbound here through the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, even into north central Michigan and the upper peninsula of the state. 30s, and we're going to see a lot of frost and freeze conditions across this region to kickstart the week for morning lows. Meanwhile, the further southeast you go, you can definitely tell that the cool down is not there just yet. Lots of 50s into some parts of the southern Appalachians, and even some 60s the closer you go to the southeast coast of the U.S. Monday afternoon, while we've got 40s and 50s behind this front up there in Minnesota and Wisconsin, we've still got some 60s and 70s through parts of the Ohio Valley moving into the mid-Atlantic and southeast. Even some 80s and, dare I say, 90s down towards the Gulf Coast. Those could be record-breaking high temperatures in places like Houston, Texas, and Lake Charles, Louisiana. Now jumping into our Tuesday morning, the cool down continues to fill more areas here, and I want to actually circle some of the areas that are a little bit further southeast because, yes, 20s and some low 30s are pretty uncommon up there towards parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota, but it's nothing, too extreme there. Meanwhile, as you move east, some of these numbers are a little bit more uncommon, and that's why these numbers are more like 15, 20 degrees below average for this time of the year. Tennessee and North Carolina easily getting down into the low 40s Tuesday morning. We've got plenty of 30s through Ohio, West Virginia, and the same goes for pretty much every Northeast state. Boston, Massachusetts around 40, maybe even dipping down into the 30s into our Tuesday morning, and only staying around 50 for a peak high into the afternoon on Tuesday. In fact, that's going to be the case across a lot of these northeastern quadrant states of the U.S. If you're north of this line I'm slapping down right now, you have a pretty high chance that your high temperature, your peak temperature for the day on Tuesday, will not reach above 60 degrees. That will include northern Missouri into central Iowa, as temperatures in places like Des Moines could be around 55 to 57 for a high. Minneapolis, Minnesota around 53-ish for a high on our Tuesday. Plenty of 40s in some parts of Wisconsin and north central Michigan, over there into the interior northeast as well, where those could even be some low to mid 40s there. Wednesday morning, waking up to some very chilly low temperatures, and if you're north of this line that I'm currently putting on the screen, you are expected to stay in the frost to freeze category for at least a couple of hours into our Wednesday dawn hours. 20s into a lot of Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Moving into the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, we've got plenty of widespread 30s, and even down there towards Tennessee and western North Carolina, heading down the southern Appalachians, we've got some near freeze conditions and definitely at least some frost there. And then between that previously drawn line and this new one I just put down, a lot of these zones not necessarily getting on the frost, a few spots could, but at least some mid and upper 30s for our minimum temperatures Wednesday morning. Yet another cold day as those temperatures across a lot of this region, again, at least 10 degrees below average for this time of the year. There will be quite a recovery in the temperatures, I will say, into our Wednesday afternoon, and again, this is that recovery that I'm going to be talking about momentarily. Thursday, the last day I want to talk about, here in the morning, these are going to be the coldest lows I think that we see all week in some parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas, as a lot of the northern parts of those states in the mid to upper 30s, a lot of the southern parts of those states at least down into the 40s, and even North Florida touching some 40s easily as we get into our Thursday morning. And then as we go towards our Thursday afternoon, even though we've got a cold morning in some of these areas in the Central Plains, heading especially over towards the Midwest and Mid-South, we're going to begin to recover with those afternoon highs, and the morning lows will soon also recover back towards normal levels and even above average levels here. Already some 70s and 80s working their way up towards Minnesota for peak highs, and late this week, here's the jet stream flow that's going to be bringing in that warmer than average air that I'm beginning to talk about now. Notice that gray line. I really want you to focus on that jet stream. Moves from northwest to southeast as we go through the Pacific Northwest, so there's a little bit of cool air there, but then we've got that south to north flow and the associated ridge in the Central Plains, and that is going to be responsible for this temperature anomaly graphic that I'm showing you now as we go towards our October 18th, which is Friday of this week, in places that were 10 to 15 degrees below average to start the week by Friday up here in the upper Midwest and in some parts of the Great Lakes, even the Northeast, or at least 5 to 10 degrees above average, and many spots getting around 15 to 20 degrees above average. That will include Minneapolis, Minnesota. Still hanging on to some cooler air there in the southeast, though, and some cool air moving in behind that warm air into the mountain west. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this pattern that we're looking at a little bit longer range is going to look like in terms of the precipitation side of things. As we go through most of this week, it's going to be yet another dry week with more drought conditions moving into some areas that have been dry already. Other than some spotty valley rain showers and elevated snow showers there through parts of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, into Colorado Thursday, going into Thursday night and into our Friday, there's really not much going on across the country. That will begin to change, though, and you can see the signs of that as we're going to see kind of a low pressure system try to bank up against that ridge in the warm air in the central U.S. Friday going into our Saturday. Notice a little piece of energy. There's going to be one riding through southern Canada, kind of connecting with this one that's in the south central parts of the Rockies. This particular model, as well as the GFS models, they do agree that we're probably going to have at least some cloudiness and some unsettled weather with scattered showers and maybe a few storms possible as we go into this weekend from the upper Midwest and the north central plains back down here towards the southern Rockies, going out of Arizona into New Mexico and west central Texas. I doubt that we're going to see much in the way, if any, chance of severe weather, but we could begin to see that if we get what I'm about to show you to pop out of the parts of the Rockies. Notice as we go through Sunday, a little bit of a break period according to this model, but then sometime as we go into the early part of next week, going out of Monday into Monday night towards Tuesday, this trend, keyword trend, shows a strong low pressure system ejecting out of the Rockies and moving into the central and north central plains. This could bring some severe weather chances really anywhere based on far out from this we are right now. From Texas all the way on up there to the Canadian border, it's very hard to tell, and some of this could try to move eastward, but this model indicates that this storm would really weaken before it could do so. Let me show you why severe weather becomes a little bit more of a possibility this time of the year, because we are heading towards that secondary severe weather season that we get heading out of October and into the last 2 months of the year. In this case, as we go out of Friday into Saturday and Sunday, maybe the early parts of next week as well, the overall jet stream flow is going to be the same, so I'm just pausing it late Friday here. You can see heading out of California and Nevada down into Arizona and New Mexico, we've got this curl in the jet stream that ends up lifting northward with that ridge into the central U.S. and the eastern U.S., right along where that jet stream kind of digs down there through the southwest. That is called a trough, and when a trough banks up against a ridge, that's where you kind of get some warm air moving from south to north out ahead of the jet stream, and then you've got some of that wind flow moving in and possibly changing directions in the atmosphere. That's when you start to get those severe weather chances move up, and especially the further south you go towards where there's more moisture near the Gulf of Mexico, where there's more of that wind energy kicking out of that jet stream trough. That's where you tend to get some severe weather potentials. And these kinds of setups are the ones that could be even feistier as we go more through November and December, when the jet stream just continues to kick more towards high gear like we see into the wintertime months. What I do want to mention, though, in addition to the severe weather potential that we could try to see get in at least isolated fashion going towards this weekend and next week, look at the drought that's going on for pretty much, I would say, 70+% of the country as of October 8th, 2024, and I'm sure this is continuing to build in many areas. The Ohio Valley getting a drought. We've got it through the north central plains, through all of the plains, for that matter, back into the Mountain West. Only the southeast U.S., as a result of some recent hurricanes, does not need rain. So any beneficial rain, I'll let you know when that's on the way. So make sure you are hitting that subscribe button to the channel right down below if you want more consistent, accurate, and educational update videos in the future. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, as I mentioned. I love when you hit that like button. Plus, leave those comments down below. I love interacting with everybody who watches these videos. Even if you have a negative comment and some feedback, drop that down below in the most polite way possible, at least. I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys. I'll catch you later.
One nation weather.